You stole my life. Now I'm taking it back.
I came home from my late-night run, sweat dripping down my face, my lungs burning from the October air. The house was dark except for the porch light Sarah had left on. I kicked off my running shoes on the back porch and grabbed my water bottle from the kitchen counter. That's when I heard voices coming from the living room. "Bro, you won't believe what happened tonight," a voice whispered into a phone. I recognized it immediately. Jake Morrison, my 19-year-old daughter, Emily's boyfriend. I got both of them on camera. The mom and the daughter's friend. Craziest night of my life, man. My blood turned to ice water. I pressed myself against the kitchen wall, listening. "Yeah, the hot lawyer mom. She was drunk as heck at that party. And get this, she had no idea I was recording. Neither did the friend. I got everything, dude. Everything." My hands started shaking. Sarah, my wife of 22 years. The woman who'd built her law practice from nothing, who'd stood by me when I lost my job at the factory, who'd helped me start my auto repair shop. I stepped into the living room. Jake spun around, his face going pale in the lamplight. "Get out," I said quietly. "Mr. Peterson, I said get out, now." Jake grabbed his jacket and bolted for the door. I heard his car engine roar to life in the driveway, tires squealing as he peeled out of our quiet suburban street. I stood there in the darkness of my living room, staring at the family photos on the mantel. Sarah and me on our wedding day, Emily's high school graduation, our last vacation to the lake house. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Check your email. You deserve to know the truth." With trembling fingers, I opened my laptop. There it was, a video file in my inbox. The timestamp showed it was from 3 hours ago during the law firm's annual Halloween party. I didn't want to watch it, but I had to. The video showed Sarah in her Wonder Woman costume stumbling drunk through someone's bedroom. She wasn't alone. A younger man, not Jake, but someone I didn't recognize, was with her. The camera angle suggested it was hidden, maybe a phone propped on a dresser. I watched my wife of 22 years betray everything we'd built together. I closed the laptop and walked upstairs. Sarah was passed out in our bed, still wearing her costume, makeup smeared across the pillowcase. She reeked of alcohol and something else, cologne I didn't recognize. In the bathroom, I found a pregnancy test in the trash can. Positive. We hadn't been intimate in 3 months. I went back downstairs and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon. Then I called the only person I could trust. "Baxter Law Office," came the gravelly voice of my old friend Tom Baxter. "Tom, it's Nick. I need to see you first thing Monday morning." "Jesus, Nick, it's midnight on a Saturday. What's wrong?" "My marriage just ended, and I'm going to need a very good lawyer." Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent Sunday in my garage working on Mrs. Henderson's transmission and trying not to think about the video that kept playing in my head. Sarah had woken up with a massive hangover, claiming she didn't remember anything from the party. She made coffee and toast like nothing had happened, chattering about some big case at the firm. "Nick, you're being awfully quiet," she said, buttering her toast with the same precision she used to dissect witnesses in court. "Just tired," I replied, not looking up from my coffee. "Well, I have some news that might cheer you up." She sat down across from me at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. "I'm pregnant." I looked at her then, really looked at her. At 41, Sarah was still beautiful. Her auburn hair was pulled back in that professional style she favored, and her green eyes sparkled with what she probably thought was excitement. "Pregnant," I repeated. "I know it's a surprise. We weren't trying, but sometimes life has its own plans, right? Sometimes it does." I stood up and grabbed my jacket. "I've got to get to the shop." "Nick, aren't you excited? We're going to have a baby." I paused at the door. "When's your first doctor's appointment?" "Thursday at 2. Dr. Martinez wants to do an ultrasound to determine how far along I am." I nodded and left without another word. Tom Baxter's office sat above Murphy's Tavern on Main Street in one of those old brick buildings that defined our town's character. Tom had been practicing law here for 30 years, handling everything from DUIs as to divorce cases. He'd also been my boxing coach back in high school, which meant he knew exactly how much punishment I could take. "You look like heck," he said when I walked into his cluttered office. "Feel worse." I handed him my laptop. "Watch the video in my email, then tell me what my options are." Tom watched in silence, his weathered face growing grimmer with each passing minute. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair and lit a cigarette, despite the no smoking signs posted everywhere. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "I have no idea. This is the first I've known about it. And she's pregnant?" "So she says. We haven't been intimate since July." Tom took a long drag from his cigarette. "Pennsylvania's a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect alimony and property division. The problem is proving it. I've got video evidence." "Of one incident. Was she identifiable in the video?" I thought about it. The lighting had been dim, and Sarah's face wasn't clearly visible. "Maybe not clearly enough for court. Then we need more. Much more." Tom stubbed out his cigarette. "I'm going to be straight with you, Nick. Sarah's a lawyer, a good one. She knows exactly how to protect herself in a divorce. If you want to come out of this with anything, your shop, your house, your dignity, you're going to have to be smarter than she is." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you start paying very close attention to your wife's activities. Document everything, times, dates, locations. Get me evidence I can use in court." I left Tom's office with a sick feeling in my stomach and a plan that made me feel like a stalker in my own marriage. That evening, I installed a hidden camera app on an old phone and placed it strategically in our bedroom. I hated myself for doing it, but Tom was right. I needed evidence. Sarah came home late from work, claiming she'd been preparing for a deposition. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring and avoiding eye contact. "How was your day?" she asked, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Should you be drinking if you're pregnant?" She paused, the glass halfway to her lips. "One glass won't hurt. My doctor said moderate drinking is fine in the first trimester." That was a lie. Sarah had been obsessive about avoiding alcohol when she was pregnant with Emily. "I'm going to bed," I said. "Already? It's only 9 o'clock. Long day." I went upstairs and pretended to sleep, listening to Sarah move around downstairs. Around 11, I heard her on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. I crept to the top of the stairs. "I can't keep doing this," she was saying. "Nick's getting suspicious. No, I don't think he knows anything for sure, but he's been acting strange." "Thursday at 2, Dr. Martinez." "Yes, I'll call you after." My hands clenched into fists. She was talking to him, whoever he was. The next morning, I followed Sarah to work. I'd never been the jealous, suspicious type, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Her law firm occupied the top 3 floors of the newest building in town, all glass and steel that looked out of place among our 19th century architecture. I parked across the street and watched the entrance. At 10:30, a man I didn't recognize walked in. Tall, athletic build, probably in his early 30s. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. My phone rang. Emily. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." "What's wrong, honey?" "It's about Jake. We broke up." I felt a surge of relief. "I'm sorry to hear that. What happened?" "He's been acting weird lately. Secretive. And he said some things about Mom that were really inappropriate." My stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "I don't want to repeat them, but Dad, I think there's something going on that you should know about." "Meet me at Murphy's Tavern for lunch. We'll talk." I spent the rest of the morning watching Sarah's building, but the man didn't come out. At noon, I drove to Murphy's to meet Emily. My daughter looked tired and older than her 19 years. She'd inherited Sarah's green eyes and my stubborn chin, along with a sharp intelligence that sometimes worried me. "Jake's been bragging to his friends," she said without preamble. "About Mom." "What kind of bragging?" Emily's face flushed red. "Private stuff. He claims he has videos of her. He showed some of his buddies at a party last weekend." The burger I'd ordered suddenly tasted like cardboard. "Did you see these videos?" "God, no, but his friend Marcus told me about it. He thought I should know what Jake was saying. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I hoped it wasn't true. I hoped Jake was just being a disgusting pig, making things up to impress his friends." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But it is true, isn't it? Mom's having an affair." I reached across the table and took my daughter's hand. "I think so, yes. Who is he?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." That afternoon, I closed the shop early and drove to the lake house. Sarah and I had bought it 5 years ago as a weekend retreat, a place to get away from the pressures of work and town gossip. Now I needed somewhere to think. The house sat on 2 acres of wooded property, with a small dock extending into the lake. I'd spent countless hours there, fishing and working on the old speedboat I'd bought at auction. I called Tom from the dock. "I need to hire a private investigator," I said. "That's expensive, Nick, and it might not hold up in court if it's obtained illegally." I don't care about the cost, and I'm not planning to use it in court. There was a long pause. What are you planning to use it for? I haven't decided yet. Tom gave me the name of an investigator in Pittsburgh, a former cop named Detective Ray Sullivan who specialized in adultery cases. I called him immediately. I can have preliminary information for you within a week, Sullivan said. Full surveillance package runs $500 a day plus expenses. Do it. That evening, Sarah came home with flowers and takeout from our favorite Italian restaurant. I thought we could have a romantic dinner, she said, kissing my cheek. Just the two of us. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion to want to spend time with my husband? We ate by candlelight, making small talk about work and Emily's college classes. Sarah seemed relaxed, more like her old self than she'd been in months. Nick, I know I've been distant lately, she said over dessert. The pregnancy hormones are making me crazy, and work's been incredibly stressful. What case is keeping you so busy? The Henderson divorce. You know how messy those high-asset cases can get? Another lie. The Henderson case had been settled 6 months ago. I love you, she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I want you to know that, no matter what happens. What's going to happen? Nothing. I want to make sure you know how much our marriage means to me. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to sleep, I checked the hidden camera footage on my phone. Nothing unusual, just Sarah getting ready for bed and reading before falling asleep. But as I was scrolling through the day's recordings, I noticed something odd. Around 3 p.m., while I was at the lake house, Sarah had come home. She'd changed clothes, showered, and left again within an hour. She'd never mentioned coming home early. Detective Sullivan called me Thursday morning with his preliminary report. Your wife's having an affair with Shane Morrison, he said. 28 years old, owns a gym downtown. He's also the older brother of your daughter's ex-boyfriend. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Jake Morrison, Shane Morrison. The video Jake had been bragging about wasn't something he'd secretly recorded. It was something his older brother had shared with him. How long has it been going on? I asked. At least 6 months, probably longer. They meet at his apartment above the gym on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Your wife tells her secretary she's at off-site depositions. Are you sure? I've got photos, video, credit card receipts. She's been paying for a hotel room at the Marriott every Friday night for the past 4 months. Registry shows 2 occupants. I felt like I was going to throw up. Send me everything. Mr. Peterson, I have to ask, what are you planning to do with this information? I haven't decided yet. That afternoon, while Sarah was at her supposed doctor's appointment, I drove to Morrison's gym. It occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that catered to serious lifters and weekend warriors trying to recapture their youth. Shane Morrison was easy to spot. He looked like a younger, more muscular version of his brother, Jake. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and the kind of cocky smile that probably drove women crazy. He was spotting someone on the bench press, offering encouragement in a voice loud enough for the entire gym to hear. I watched him for 20 minutes, studying his mannerisms, his interactions with other people. He was charismatic. I had to give him that. The kind of guy who made everyone feel like his best friend. He was also young enough to be Sarah's son. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Doctor's appointment went great. Baby's healthy. Home by 6 with dinner. More lies. According to Sullivan's report, Sarah was currently in Shane's apartment, probably celebrating their successful deception. I drove home and waited. Sarah arrived at 6:15 with Chinese takeout and a fake smile. How did the appointment go? I asked. Wonderful. Dr. Martinez says everything looks perfect. The baby's due in May. That's great news. Did you get any ultrasound pictures? Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment. The machine was broken. We'll get them at the next appointment. I nodded and opened the container of lo mein. I ran into Tom Baxter today. He mentioned that his wife saw you at the Marriott last Friday. Said you looked like you were having a business dinner. Sarah's chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth. Oh, that. Yes, I was meeting with a client. Very confidential case. Must be important to meet at a hotel instead of the office. Some clients prefer discretion. We finished dinner in silence. Sarah kept checking her phone, typing quick responses to messages she didn't share with me. After she went to bed, I sat in my garage workshop, surrounded by the tools and projects that had always brought me peace. But tonight, nothing could calm the rage building inside me. I pulled up Detective Sullivan's photos on my laptop. Sarah and Shane entering his apartment building. Sarah and Shane at the Marriott. Sarah and Shane at a restaurant in the next town over, holding hands across the table like teenagers. In every photo, my wife looked happier than she'd been with me in years. The final photo was time-stamped from this afternoon. Sarah leaving Shane's apartment at 4:30, her hair disheveled, her blouse wrinkled. She was smiling. I closed the laptop and made a decision. Friday evening, I told Sarah I was going to the lake house for the weekend to work on the boat. "That sounds nice," she said, not looking up from her legal briefs. "I'll probably work late tomorrow anyway. Big case coming up. I'm sure you'll be very busy." I loaded my truck with tools and fishing gear, making sure the neighbors saw me leave. Then I drove to the lake house, parked in the garage, and waited for dark. At 8 p.m., I drove back to town in Sarah's old Honda that we kept at the lake house for emergencies. I parked 3 blocks from Morrison's gym and walked the rest of the way. The gym closed at 9 p.m. on Fridays. I watched from across the street as the last customers left, followed by the staff. Shane Morrison locked up at 9:15 and headed upstairs to his apartment. At 9:30, Sarah's BMW pulled into the alley behind the building. I waited until she was inside, then crossed the street and tried the gym's back door. Locked, but the lock was old and cheap. I had it open in 30 seconds with tools from my truck. The gym was dark except for the emergency exit signs. I made my way to the stairs leading to Shane's apartment, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear it upstairs. Their voices carried through the thin walls. "I can't keep lying to him," Sarah was saying. "Nick's getting suspicious." "So tell him the truth," Shane replied. "You're not happy. You haven't been happy for years." "It's not that simple. The shop, the house, Emily's college tuition, everything's tied up together. We could leave, go somewhere new, start over." "With what money? Nick would get half of everything in a divorce. Not if he doesn't know about the money you've been moving." My blood turned to ice. "What money?" "The offshore account was supposed to be temporary," Sarah said, "just until I figured out how to handle the divorce." "How much is in there now?" "Almost 200,000. Everything from the Henderson settlement, plus what I've been skimming from the firm's client account." She was embezzling. My wife, the respected attorney, was stealing from her own clients. "That's enough to disappear," Shane said. "We could be in Mexico by Monday." "What about the baby? What about it? You said yourself you're not sure it's his." I'd heard enough. I pulled out my phone and started recording as I climbed the stairs. The apartment door was unlocked. I pushed it open and walked into the living room where Sarah and Shane were sitting on a leather couch, drinking wine and planning their escape. Sarah saw me first. Her face went white. "Nick, what are you doing here?" Listening to my wife plan to rob me blind and run away with her boy toy, Shane stood up, puffing out his chest like a rooster. "You need to leave, old man." "Old man?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm 44 years old and I've been working with my hands since I was 16. You spend your days helping soccer moms lift 5-pound weights. Want to test who's tougher?" "Nick, please," Sarah said, standing between us. "Let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been stealing money from your clients? How you've been lying about being pregnant, or how you've been screwing a kid young enough to be your son?" "I am pregnant," she said quietly. "With his baby?" Sarah's silence was answer enough. Shane stepped forward. "Look, Peterson, this doesn't have to get ugly. Sarah's not happy with you. She hasn't been for years. Just let her go." "Let her go?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the recording. "After I turn this over to the State Bar Association and the district attorney, after I show them evidence of embezzlement, adultery, and fraud." Sarah's legs gave out and she collapsed back onto the couch. "Nick, please. I'll pay back the money. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is my life back. What I want is the 22 years I wasted on you. But I can't have that, can I?" Shane moved toward me, probably thinking he could intimidate me with his muscles and youth. I let him get close, then drove my fist into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping for air. "Stay down," I advised him. "I used to box Golden Gloves. You lift weights for a living. This won't end well for you." I turned back to Sarah. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer every penny you stole back to the client accounts. You're going to resign from the firm, and you're going to sign whatever divorce papers Tom Baxter puts in front of you. And if I don't," I held up my phone, "then I release this recording to everyone in town. Your law partners, your clients, your friends, Emily's college friends, your mother in Florida. Everyone. You wouldn't. Try me." Shane had recovered enough to stand up. This is blackmail. No, this is justice. Blackmail would be if I demanded money to keep quiet. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for my dignity back. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Sarah, don't come home tonight, or any night. Find somewhere else to sleep. Nick, wait. But I was already gone. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves scandal. By Monday morning, everyone knew that Sarah Peterson had resigned from her law firm for personal reasons and that her husband had filed for divorce. I opened my shop at 7 a.m. as usual, expecting awkward conversations and pitying looks from my customers. Instead, I found something unexpected: support. "Heard about your troubles," said Bill Murphy, dropping off his truck for brake work. "Sorry it happened, but good for you for standing up for yourself." "That woman never deserved you anyway," added Mrs. Henderson, whose transmission I had rebuilt last month. "Too fancy for her own good." By noon, I'd had similar conversations with a dozen customers. Apparently, Sarah's arrogance and social climbing had made her more enemies than friends in our small town. Tom Baxter called at lunch. "Sarah's attorney wants to negotiate," he said. "She's willing to give you the house, the shop, and her car in exchange for your silence about the embezzlement." "What about the offshore account?" "She claims it doesn't exist." "I've got recordings that say otherwise." "Then we go to court and let a judge sort it out. But Nick, I have to warn you, if this goes public, it's going to get messy. Really messy. I don't care anymore, Tom. I'm tired of being the nice guy who gets walked all over." That evening, Emily came to see me at the shop. She looked like she'd been crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have told you about Jake's bragging sooner." "This isn't your fault, honey. Mom called me. She says you're trying to destroy her life." I set down my wrench and looked at my daughter. "Your mother stole $200,000 from her clients. She's been having an affair for months. And she's pregnant with another man's baby. What exactly am I destroying?" Emily's face crumpled. "I just want our family back." "So did I. But your mother made choices that destroyed our family long before I found out about them." "What's going to happen now?" "I don't know. But whatever happens, you'll always be my daughter, and I'll always love you." We hugged for a long time, standing in my cluttered garage workshop while the October wind rattled the windows. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Detective Ray Sullivan arrived with 2 men in suits, FBI agents investigating financial crimes. "We need to ask you some questions about your wife's business activities," one of them said. I told them everything I knew and turned over copies of all my evidence. They seemed particularly interested in the offshore account and the timeline of Sarah's embezzlement. "How long do you think this has been going on?" Agent Morrison asked. "Based on what I heard, at least 6 months, maybe longer. We'll need you to testify if this goes to trial. Whatever you need." After they left, I sat in my office and tried to process what was happening. My wife wasn't just an adulteress. She was a federal criminal. The woman I'd loved and trusted for 22 years had been living a double life that I never suspected. My phone rang. Sarah. "Nick, we need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Please, I know you hate me, but I need you to understand something." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at Murphy's Tavern that evening. Sarah looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her hair was unwashed, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She was staying at a motel on the outskirts of town, according to Tom's sources. "I never meant for it to happen," she said without preamble. "Which part? The affair or the embezzlement?" "Any of it. I was unhappy, Nick. I had been for years. You were always working, always focused on the shop or your projects. I felt invisible." "So you decided to sleep with a kid half your age and steal money from your clients?" "It wasn't supposed to go that far. Shane made me feel young again, attractive. And the money? I was just borrowing it. I planned to pay it back." "With what? Your salary was going into our joint account." Sarah looked down at her hands. "I was going to take out a loan against the house." "Our house. Without telling me. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you were planning to steal everything we built together and disappear with your boyfriend." "I wasn't thinking clearly. The pregnancy hormones, the stress at work." "Don't blame this on hormones. You made conscious choices, Sarah. Every single day for months, you chose to lie to me." We sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the low hum of conversation from other patrons who were pretending not to stare at us. "What do you want from me?" Sarah finally asked. "I want you to face the consequences of your actions. I want you to take responsibility instead of making excuses." "And then what? You get your revenge and we all move on? I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. This isn't about revenge anymore, Sarah. This is about justice. You committed crimes. Real crimes that hurt real people. Your clients trusted you with their money and you stole it. I can pay it back. That's not the point. The point is that you thought you were smart enough to get away with it. You thought I was too stupid to figure it out. Sarah started crying then, quiet tears that she wiped away with a napkin. I never thought you were stupid. I thought you were safe, predictable. I thought I could have my excitement with Shane and still have my security with you. You thought you could have it all. Yes. I stood up and put on my jacket. Well, now you have nothing, and you have no one to blame but yourself. The trial made headlines in the regional newspaper. Local attorneys sentenced to 5 years for embezzlement. Sarah had pled guilty to federal fraud charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. She would serve her time at a minimum security facility in West Virginia. Shane Morrison had been charged as an accessory after prosecutors proved he'd helped Sarah move money to the offshore account. He got 2 years probation and community service. I testified at Sarah's sentencing hearing, not to ask for leniency, but to give a victim impact statement on behalf of the clients she'd defrauded. Sarah Peterson betrayed the trust of everyone who knew her, I told the judge. Her clients, her colleagues, her family. She chose personal gratification over professional responsibility, and innocent people suffered because of her choices. Sarah didn't look at me during my testimony. She sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, staring at her hands. The divorce was finalized a week later. I got the house, the shop, both cars, and half of Sarah's legitimate assets. The offshore money was seized by the federal government to compensate her victims. Emily decided to transfer to a college closer to home so she could help me adjust to single life. She was majoring in business administration and wanted to help me expand the auto shop. I think we should add a towing service, she said one evening, as we ate dinner in our quiet kitchen. There's no competition in town, and it would bring in steady revenue. That's not a bad idea. We'd need to buy a truck and get the proper licenses. I already researched it. Initial investment would be about $50,000, but we break even within 2 years. I looked at my daughter with pride. At 19, she was already showing more business sense than her mother ever had. Let's do it, I said. 6 months later, Peterson's Auto Repair and Towing was the busiest shop in town. Emily had been right about the demand for towing services, and word-of-mouth recommendations kept our repair bays full. I hired 2 mechanics and bought a second tow truck. Emily managed the books and handled customer service with a professionalism that impressed everyone who met her. Your daughter's got a good head on her shoulders, Tom Baxter told me one day when he brought his car in for an oil change. Takes after her old man. She gets her brains from her mother, I replied. Fortunately, she got her ethics from me. 1 year after Sarah's sentencing, I received a letter from her in prison. She was working in the library and taking correspondence courses in accounting. She wanted to make amends when she got out. I threw the letter away without finishing it. Some betrayals are too deep for forgiveness. Some trust, once broken, can never be repaired. But life goes on. Emily graduated summa cum laude and took over the business side of the shop full-time. I focused on what I'd always loved, fixing things that were broken, solving mechanical problems with my hands and my experience. On quiet evenings, I sometimes sat on my back porch and thought about the man I'd been before I discovered Sarah's betrayal. That man had been naive, trusting, willing to believe the best about people. I wasn't that man anymore. I was harder now, more cynical, less willing to take people at face value. But I was also stronger, more self-reliant, more aware of my own worth. 2 years after the divorce, I started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinner and movies with women who appreciated honesty and didn't play games. I never remarried. Once was enough. Epilogue, 5 years later. The annual town festival was in full swing when I saw her. Sarah walking through the crowd with a hesitant smile, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. She'd been released from prison 6 months earlier and was living in a halfway house in Pittsburgh. She approached my booth where Emily and I were selling raffle tickets for the volunteer fire department. "Hello, Nick," she said quietly. Sarah. "Hi, Mom," Emily said, her voice carefully neutral. "You both look wonderful. The business seems to be thriving." "It is," I replied. "We're doing well." Sarah nodded, glancing around at the bustling festival. "I wanted to apologize to both of you for everything." "Apology noted," I said. "I know you probably can't forgive me. I don't expect you to. But I want you to know that I understand now how much I hurt you. How selfish I was. Emily reached across the table and touched her mother's hand briefly. I'm glad you're okay, Mom. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm trying to rebuild my life. I'm working at a legal aid clinic helping people who can't afford attorneys. It doesn't pay much, but it feels like I'm doing something useful. That's good, Emily said. Sarah looked at me. I heard you're seeing someone. Margaret from the library? We're friends, I said carefully. She seems nice. You deserve to be happy. An awkward silence fell over us. Around us, the festival continued. Children laughing, music playing, the smell of funnel cake and barbecue in the air. I should go, Sarah said finally. I just wanted to see you both, to say, I'm sorry. She walked away, disappearing into the crowd of families and couples enjoying the perfect autumn day. Emily watched her go. Do you think she's really changed? I think she's learned that actions have consequences, I replied. Whether that's the same as changing, I don't know. Do you hate her? I considered the question carefully. No, I don't hate her, but I don't trust her either, and I never will again. That evening, Margaret and I walked around the festival together, sharing cotton candy and watching the fireworks display over the lake. She was a widow, 10 years younger than me, with grown children of her own. She understood that some scars never fully heal. Was that difficult? She asked, seeing Sarah. Not as difficult as I expected, I admitted. She's part of my past now, a chapter that's closed. Margaret squeezed my hand. I'm glad. As the fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky in brilliant colors, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had also freed me from a marriage that was built on lies. I'd lost a wife, but I'd gained something more valuable. Self-respect. I'd learned that being the nice guy doesn't mean being the weak guy. That standing up for yourself isn't the same as seeking revenge. That sometimes the best way to win is simply to refuse to lose. The fireworks reached their crescendo, filling the night sky with light and sound. Children cheered, couples embraced, and life continued its eternal cycle of endings and beginnings. I was 50 years old, financially secure, surrounded by people who respected me, and dating a woman who appreciated my honesty and integrity. Sarah Peterson had tried to destroy my life, but she'd only succeeded in making it better. The final firework faded from the sky, leaving behind the scent of fireworks and the echo of applause. Margaret and I walked hand in hand toward my truck, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. I'd survived my wife's betrayal, rebuilt my life from the ground up, and emerged stronger than before. That was victory enough.